Could we see this Red Sox fan favorite in another uniform next year? What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Red Seat Radio. My name is Corbin, and thank you very much for clicking on this video. We got kind of an interesting video for you guys today, because, technically, we're talking about the first moves the Red Sox have made this offseason, right? At least to their 40-man roster. But the other thing we're talking about today is the idea of one of the Red Sox key bench role players, a guy that, they're maybe not going to be crazy headlines about, and what his future with the Boston Red Sox could look like. But I feel like the best place to start is with those first roster moves of the 2026 offseason. Feels good to say, right? To talk about some actual movement for this Red Sox team. And the first moves were to DFA a couple of players. And a couple of players I don't think a lot of you guys are going to be too upset about. The first player that the Red Sox ended up DFAing here was Isaiah Campbell. Now, to be honest with you, I'm more shocked that Isaiah Campbell was still on the Red Sox 40-man roster than I am him being DFA'd from this 40-man roster, right? I was thoroughly convinced that they had DFA'd this guy either heading into the playoffs, the last month of the season, or whatever, but nope, he's still with this Red Sox team, or I guess was still with this Red Sox team. And the reason I say I wasn't too surprised is I think a lot of people understand it already, but just to go over it, he just wasn't really an effective player at the major league level for the Red Sox. You take a look at either of the years that he played with this Red Sox team, there was just nothing really positive to take out of it. Now, in all fairness, it's not like he had, 30, 40, 50 innings at the major league level at any point in the last two seasons, right? There were stints of 7, 8 innings at a time with the Boston Red Sox, but when you can't translate success in minor league baseball to major league baseball, even in small sample sizes, especially with the depth that the Red Sox have been putting together here, it just didn't make a ton of sense to keep and hold on to Isaiah Campbell, especially coming out of a season where you're looking at, what is this bullpen going to look like in 2026, right? I think everyone would have been more shocked if Isaiah Campbell was included in the bullpen in 2026. And as much as I think he's probably a good guy, he just really wasn't an effective baseball player for the Red Sox. Even in AAA this season, he had a 3.90 ERA and 57 2/3 innings down there, which isn't terrible. Again, it wasn't translating to success in Major League Baseball, and there are players right now who have been having more success in AAA, who have more potential to impact this team going forward. So, to me, it makes all the sense in the world that Isaiah Campbell will not be on the Red Sox 40-man roster heading into the offseason, right? And again, I'm just simply surprised it took them this long to get to it. But there is another player we got to talk about. Now, the other player that was DFA'd, I don't have that much of a rant to go off of, right? The Isaiah Campbell one was a little bit of a rant. This one, not so much. And that was Jose De Leon. And whenever I hear that name, I think going forward now, I'm going to think of two different things. One, I'm going to think of how cool of a story it was, right? This guy was a veteran, sort of journeyman type pitcher who really couldn't figure out how to stick in Major League Baseball. He was down there in AAA, just sort of eating innings for the Woo Sox, doing really nothing all that much, was called up in the last game of the season for the Sox, just simply to eat innings. And not only did he eat innings, he came out there and kind of dominated the Detroit Tigers, right? Put the Red Sox in the position to have the second wild card spot heading into the playoffs. But that's the second thing I'm going to remember with Jose De Leon. How much of a different postseason experience would the Red Sox have had if Jose De Leon pitched like he had this entire year in Worcester, right? And they ended up facing the Cleveland Guardians first round as opposed to the New York Yankees. Would the Red Sox have made it past the wild card series? Would they made it to the DS? Would it have been a different conversation heading into this postseason? I don't know. Right, and I still think there were major holes with the Red Sox. I still think no matter who they faced in this postseason, those holes would have been exposed. But I do think it would have been an interesting series to, sort of do that what if about. Not shocked at all that the Red Sox DFA'd this guy. Yes, it was a cool story. Yes, he performed well at the major league level. But it feels like that was more so a flash in the pan, a sort of cool moment than it was anything that you sit there and you say, hey, is this sustainable going forward, right? The dude had a 6.93 ERA with a 6.36 FIP at the AAA level this season and was 0-9 this year, right? Now, if you do feel strongly about either of these players, which I highly doubt and many of you guys do feel strongly about them, don't worry, they are still in the Red Sox organization. They were outrighted back to Worcester, which means that they are still in the Red Sox system. They're just not on the 40-man roster. No one picked them up via the waiver wire. No one traded for either of these guys, although I don't know, to be totally honest with you, what the situation is with the waiver wire and minor league trades like that between now and when free agency / the big trade market actually opens up. I assume that you can go ahead and claim these guys off of waivers. I don't know if you could trade for them, but either way, they are still in the Red Sox system, and it's probably going to be the first of many moves the Red Sox make, right? They really need to clean up this roster quite a bit. They've got the start of the offseason, every single player that's on your roster, that's on the 60-day IL, ends up back on your roster, so all of a sudden you're going to have like 46 out of 40 players, especially for the Red Sox, who have a lot of guys on that 60-day IL on your 40-man. Obviously, you could put them back on the 60-day at some point during the offseason. I believe it's the start of spring training. I'm not entirely sure, but you're going to have some big decisions to make here as to who ends up on your 40-man, who ends up not, and you're going to see a lot of guys like these guys end up being DFA'd and potentially even moved on from this Red Sox team. So this is just the first of many, right? And so while this isn't a big move by any means and really isn't incredibly headline-worthy news, it is absolutely something that we need to cover because what it indicates is the start of the Red Sox hopefully improving their roster coming into 2026. And speaking of improving, we got to talk about someone who could potentially come back or potentially move on. The other bit of news I want to talk to you guys about is the idea of the Red Sox bringing back Rob Refsnyder. Now, so far this, period in between the regular season for the Red Sox and the offseason here, we've been talking about the big guys, right? The Schwarbers, the Alonsos, the Ceases, the Bregmans, the Hunter Greens, the whoever you want to say. Those are the guys we've been focusing on. But the Red Sox also have some pretty important decisions to make with sort of the bottom of their roster as well. And right now, Rob Refsnyder is at the forefront of that. This season, Rob was a pretty key player for the Red Sox. I mean, in 70 games, the dude hit .269 with a .354 on base percentage and a .484 slug this year. He's kind of been doing that since he came to the Red Sox, to be honest with you, right? He's been this sort of consistent right-handed bat the Red Sox have leaned on in some pretty big situations. Even when he was struggling in the month of September, like a whole lot of this team was, he was still a relatively productive player. Not to mention, over the course of these last 3-4 seasons in a Red Sox uniform, he's really become a veteran leader in the clubhouse for these guys, right? Duran, Cedon, Williard, especially these outfield guys, really latched on to Rob Refsnyder, and he's become this sort of, I don't know if I would call him like vocal leader in the Red Sox clubhouse, but maybe more of a mentor to some of these younger players. He's really sort of developed, especially with the way the Red Sox brought this guy into a very key player for the Boston Red Sox. Coming into this offseason, the initial thought was he might end up retiring, right? He talked about the potential of retiring before the 2025 season. He went through a pretty decent amount of injuries this year. I wouldn't say like anything crazy, but just sort of growing old in baseball type injuries here. And it would make sense for him to just sort of hang up the spikes, especially after a good season like this, right? Kind of go out on top. I think a lot of people were not expecting, but projecting or predicting that he may end up retiring after this season. I was certainly one of those people, right, who said, yeah, I think there's a real possibility Rob just simply stops playing baseball in general, moves into a sort of coaching role. I could absolutely see him doing that at some point in his career, but now is not the time for that to happen because according to Alex Spear of the Boston Globe, quote, though he mused about the possibility of retiring after the 2024 season, the 34-year-old plans to play in 2026 and has had informal talks with the Sox about a possible return, though he should have a healthy market given his productive against lefties and a strong clubhouse reputation. So the big question becomes, should we want the Red Sox to bring this guy back? My immediate answer to that question is yes, absolutely, right? I think a lot of people, would love to have Rob Refsnyder back. Like the title says, right? He's a genuine fan favorite. People love Rob Refsnyder. He's going to give you a really solid at-bat most of the time that he's up there. He's going to play a key role in the Red Sox lineup, especially when a couple of your mainstay lefties struggle in the outfield against left-handed pitching. Specifically, Wilyer Abreu and Jarren Duran were not great against left-handed pitching this season. I think Wilyer ended up being a bit better than Duran, but there was still a significant drop-off in production. Rob Refsnyder was sort of the bridge in that. You combine the clubhouse stuff, and it's like, yeah, absolutely, you would want Rob Refsnyder back when you're talking about Rob Refsnyder alone in a vacuum. The problem for the Red Sox, though, is that they can't just look at this alone in a vacuum because it's not so much, do you want Rob Refsnyder back? It's also a question of, do you want Rob Refsnyder replacing some of the at-bats from some of the other guys that could potentially hold this role going forward, right? Because this season, something we saw that was really great for this Red Sox team was that a lot of other guys, or a few, I should say, other guys, really started to develop a real habit of hitting left-handed pitchers really well. Romy Gonzalez is a prime example of this, right? This season, he became equally as valuable, if not a little bit more valuable, than Rob Refsnyder against lefties this season. And while, yes, there is a situation here that Rob Refsnyder and Romy Gonzalez aren't really going to be overlapping at bat opportunities here, it's absolutely something to mention. On top of that, you got guys like Nick Sogard, who hit .371 with an .857 OPS against lefties this season. Nate Eaton didn't have a ton of power, but he did hit .276 off of lefties this year. Where are you fitting in Christian Campbell next year, right? Is Connor Wong going to be a bit better now that he's sort of figured out his health issues and is going to be, fully healthy coming into a regular season here? And all of a sudden you're sitting there and you're saying, well, is there room for Rob Refsnyder to come back? Obviously, you'd love to have the clubhouse veteran leadership in there, but is it more beneficial to go with some of these younger guys who could potentially have a higher ceiling overall than Rob Refsnyder, right? It's sort of a question of which one would you rather have, right? Would you rather have the young, exciting talent or that's a little bit cheaper, right? Or would you rather have the little bit more expensive outfield veteran leadership presence? I still think there's a role for Rob Refsnyder in this organization. I still think there's a role for Rob Refsnyder on this bench, but I don't know if it's going to be as, overall impactful as it has been in years past. And I do think that's a good thing for the Red Sox, right? I think that means they are developing in their system utility depth really, really well. I mean, we named two of these guys who were key players for the Red Sox during the postseason when like 95% of their lineup was injured or not performing, right? And I think that's a good thing for the Red Sox, but it also could mean the end of Rob Refsnyder in a Red Sox uniform. I don't know how inclined the Boston Red Sox are going to be, especially if Alex Spear's right, and he does have a pretty lucrative free agent market out there, right? If he gets, 2 years, $10 million from a team that's going to play him, 90, 80 games this season, are the Red Sox going to match that? Are the Red Sox going to be able to match that, right? Even if they give him 2 years, $10 million, and he's a $5 million player, which is perfectly fine for the role that he's in, is he going to be able to get 80, 90 games? I think, honestly, he might end up getting 40, 50 games. More of a pinch hitter than he is a platoon player because, again, you've got guys like Eaton, Sogard, potentially Christian Campbell, right, who could end up being these platoon players for a little bit. And I think Christian Campbell's ceiling is much higher, by the way, than just simply a platoon bat, but I'm putting him in here because I do think he's going to have to prove that he could be an everyday starter for the Red Sox before they simply hand him the keys to a position yet again. So that's why I'm including him in this, by the way. I think a lot of people are going to be like, well, Campbell's not included in that, but whatever. You guys know what I'm saying, right? So with Rob, it's a very interesting conversation, and I don't know how it's going to end up, but I do think it's an important one for the Red Sox, right? As much as, Cease and Bregman and Schwarber and Alonso are going to be the headlines of the Red Sox offseason, these little moves, how do you improve the back end of your roster? How do you make sort of the floor of this team a bit better is going to be not as important, obviously, but pretty important to how the Red Sox get from where they ended up in 2025 to where they want to be in 2026. And I think Rob's a really, really interesting conversation in there. I honestly don't know which way it goes. I still think, yes, I would bring back Rob Refsnyder, but I don't know how hard I would fight for him in free agency, but that's just my opinion. So let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys think? What do you think about the idea of Rob Refsnyder coming back? Would you bring him back? And what kind of deal would you sort of sit there and say, you know what, I'm good, dude, enjoy your new team? Also, let me know what you think about the DFAs that happened earlier this week as well. Interesting in sort of the way that it starts off the Red Sox transition in 2026. Not so interesting in terms of, oh my God, this is going to be a totally new Red Sox team, but I do want to hear your thoughts on them. So let me know. As always, if you made it to the end of this video, do me a favor, make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on this video as well. Just simply helps out a ton, and it's the best way to let me know you're enjoying the content. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one, and I will see you in the red seats.